will come to the common features. When we sleep, folks, there are two different ways. And let's say awake, right? Eyes open. When you are awake, your eyes are open. That means you are alert, active mental concentration, folks. You see beta wave, which is the highest frequency, lowest amplitude. So that's beta wave. If you are awake, but you close the eye, that is alpha wave, okay? So that's alpha wave. Now, when we go to sleep, we always start with non-REM sleep, and then we move on to REM sleep, folks, okay? Now, in non-REM, we start like this. We start like this. We start with stage 1, which is your N1, light sleep. You are falling asleep. It's theta waves. Then after a while, then you're going to go to N2, deeper sleep. This is the time that grinding of the teeth, bruxism happens, and all these things happen, folks, okay? For some reason, exam, they like asking this sleep spindle and K complex. They are seen on N2, folks, okay? So that's that. And the last one is N3. That's the deepest non-REM sleep. This is the sleep that you go to sleep and you wake up after a while and you had no idea what just happened. One of the best sleep people can get. Like you had no idea. You felt like you were dead and you came back, right? That's this sleep. Now, in this sleep, people have sleepwalking and people have night terror and bedwetting, everything happens. Now, you should know, no memory of this. Because anything happens on non-REM sleep, you cannot remember. Is that clear, folks? Because we talked about this when we were talking night terror and nightmare. Night terror, people wake up and cry, but the next day they have no clue that happened, folks, okay? So no memory. Same thing with sleepwalking, right? Like people who walk in the night, they won't believe you if you tell them next day morning that you were walking, okay? So that's that. This is your delta wave, folks, okay? Lowest frequency, highest amplitude. Now, you have to go through N1, N2, N3 in order to get to this guy. This guy is the most important. Okay, that's your REM sleep. Now, when we talk about REM sleep, during REM sleep, we lose all the motor tone. You feel like your muscles all kind of relaxing, not 100%, but kind of relaxing. Increase oxygen use. Your brain uses a lot of oxygen. So that could be a good question. Which phase of the sleep we use the most amount of oxygen? You know, I have to ask another question, otherwise I can't digest myself. So which phase of cardiac cycle you use the highest oxygen? In the pressure volume loop. The highest O2 consumption happens in which pressure volume loop stage? How many people are thinking, what is pressure volume loop, right? What is it? Complete the sentence, don't send me half. When you send half, I assume that you don't know it. That's why you don't want to use the second word. Isovolumetric contraction. What is isovolumetric contraction? Increasing pressure without changing the volume. Is that clear, folks? That's where you use the highest amount of oxygen in the heart, folks, okay? I'm just comparing this. So here, brain uses in REM sleep. This is the time you have a variable pulse and blood pressure, increased acetylcholine. REM is when dreaming happens, nightmare happens. That's why you remember that, folks, okay? You remember that. And this is where the early, penile and clitoral subsidence happens. Highlight. This is where you process your memory. You can't beat the science. Science is science, folks. There's no magic. If you don't get enough REM sleep, no matter, even if you have the IQ 150, nothing happens in your brain. Okay, that's a reality. Nobody can. So people who think that I could sleep only 3-4 hours and still I am smart, read that line again one more time. You cannot, okay? It is very important to have memory processing, folks. Okay, that's the only way. This is where, why do we call it REM? Rapid eye movement, right? It is so easy to see on babies. If you go babies and you actually see closer to the eyelid, you could see the eyeball moving. And I do all this testing on my daughter when my wife is not home. So, that's that. Now, extraocular movements due to activity. Yeah. Now, that's where the eye movements happens. Occurs every 90 minutes. And duration increased throughout the night. Okay, so what does that mean? Every time you fall asleep, let's say you are sleeping, every 90 minutes you come to REM sleep, folks. Okay, so if you sleep almost an hour and a half, then you get a little bit of REM sleep. But then you sleep even more, so the REM is increasing. So where did they come out? They said you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You need every night, because when you sleep 7 to 8 hours, you get enough REM sleep. Okay. Now, if you actually go, Europeans, they're against that. They go for more than 8 hours. They say 8 to 10 hours. That's what their research believes, that you get enough, right? Which country in the world has the #1 education system? Let's see that. Don't tell America, please don't hurt me by saying that. The answer is Finland. You guys know that. Finland is #1. When the kids go home, they don't take books or bags home. They cannot. They have to leave everything in the school. Only lunchbox they can take home. Their idea is when the school is done, you don't study, you go play, and then you go to sleep, and they sleep, folks. The quick story, I have a family in Switzerland. That's my favorite place. I go at least once a year there. My uncle lives there. And when I went first time, I got there, took a nap, and I woke up around 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. For Americans, 5, 6 o'clock is the day begins, right, in the evening. And my aunt comes and she goes, literally it's 7 o'clock. She goes, good night, I'll see you tomorrow. I was like, what are you talking about? Where's my dinner? I didn't even eat my dinner. They go to bed at 7:30 in the night. They only wake up at 5 in the morning. That's a freaking 10 to 12 hours sleeping, like that. So I went crazy the first few days, because I was like, I can't go to bed till 1 o'clock. That's what the American lifestyle, isn't it? They go to bed at 7:30 and they wake up at 5. And they were telling that the only reason they go to a doctor is to get the physical once a year. So I have migraine. So sometime I feel I'm going to get migraine, I have to take medicine. So after a few days, I went to my uncle. I asked if he have ibuprofen or Tylenol. He's like, we don't. I was like, you don't have ibuprofen or Tylenol in the house? He's like, the last time I used ibuprofen was about 18 years ago. And I was like, okay, never mind. They don't. Because you know why? When you sleep that long, you are healthy, you have no issues, and you are not tired throughout the day. They are fully active. That's why, folks, Europeans has better lifestyle than us. We believe in illusion that we have better one, okay? So, but the idea is that sleep is so important, right? Now, it's so, like, I never seen them, you don't see them sad, because if you get a good sleep, you don't even become depressed. #1 reason for depression in United States, it's sleep deprivation. That's what research says. And they said that employees who come to work, they are tired and fatigued during the daytime is because they stay up late. And when they come to work, they are not productive, right? That's exactly, folks. So you need to get the sleep. So don't try to beat the science. So if you sleep 7 to 8 hours, like yesterday, I made sure, usually I don't, but yesterday I made sure I go to bed at 10 o'clock, because I know I'm teaching neuro, I need full energy, right? I always get 7 hours, but I always make sure, because it doesn't matter. You need the brain to think and give. So always remember that, folks. So if you think that, I tell them, it's better to go to sleep early and wake up at 5 and study than staying up till 1 o'clock to cover everything, and then you're going to go to sleep, wake up. It's useless. Sometimes if you sleep, it's better, because even if you study 30%, you rather remember that 30% than trying to cover everything and you don't remember anything, folks. See what happens when you don't get a good sleep? When you're reading a question, good example, you will be confused with 2 options all the time. That tells you your brain is not clear because the brain is kind of getting confused because you did not give a break to your brain. Is that clear, folks? That's what the sleep is important, okay? So that's REM sleep. Now, if you see here, as we get older, we have some changes. Decrease REM sleep, decrease N3, right? Older people don't sleep. They pretend like sleeping. They hear everything you talk in the house. They're nosy. They listen to it, everything, right? So, and they have increased latency and early awakenings. They wake up early in the morning and they want everybody to be up. They say that's how the house should be. No, they are old. They cannot sleep. That's a problem, right? So that's change in depression. Increase REM sleep time, but decrease REM latency, folks. And they keep repeated nighttime awakening, right? Early morning awakening, insomnia, all these symptoms, folks.
Dr. Roy,
Narcolepsy has decreased REM latency.
Dr. Roy, what is this latency, REM latency and sleep latency?
So latency is it takes longer time to go into REM sleep. So you are sleeping, but it's taking longer time. That's what it is. So again, so when depression people has it, their memory, those things don't get processed properly. That's why depression get worse day by day by day, because your own problem is making it worse again. Okay. Now, that's a regular sleep cycle. Now let's see something important here. How does sleep cycle is regulated? There's a circadian rhythm, which is driven by suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's fine. Circadian rhythm control all the nocturnal release of all your hormones, folks, okay? Now, there is something called pineal gland that's important. Pineal gland secretes melatonin. Now, if you understand the science of sleeping, there are two processes to sleep. You need to fall asleep. Then after you fall asleep, you need to maintain that sleep. Is that clear, folks? When a patient comes and say that the patient has a hard time sleeping, we ask the specific question. Do you have difficulty falling asleep or you have difficulty maintaining the sleep? Because some people have no problem. They will fall asleep like this, but then they keep waking up every 1 hour. But then there are other people who cannot fall asleep, but if they fall, then they will maintain the 8 hours. Does that make sense, folks? So the melatonin, what it does, it only puts you to sleep. It doesn't maintain your sleep. A lot of the people misuse it, right? So they take the melatonin and they're still on the iPhone or iPad watching things on the bed, thinking that melatonin will put me to sleep. Now remember, folks, when you take melatonin, it's going to make you fall asleep. But in that time, if you are doing something else, the melatonin won't work. And then the students say, oh, melatonin doesn't work. Well, that's not how you used to take it, right? If you take a melatonin pill, it's very natural to take it. You should be on the bed and close your eye. You will fall asleep no matter what, okay? Because it puts you to sleep. It doesn't maintain you to sleep, folks. So that's important, okay? That's melatonin, okay? Now, light is the key, because why? In your eye, there's the two receptors, rods and cones, right? One is for colors, one is for light. Anytime you are looking at a bright or light, it gives the impression to pineal gland it's still a daytime, so I should not secrete melatonin. Is that clear, folks? So that's why they say even in the phones, right? The phone has the worst LED light, folks. It goes right into your eye. It's even worse if you are in the room. How many people we go to the bed and we turn all the lights off and then we are on the phone until we fall asleep? That is the worst thing. Why? When you turn all the lights off and you are keeping the phone in front of you, the entire bright light is going into your eye because you are not sharing the brightness. So they say, if you want to use the tablets or anything in the room, you have to keep the room lights also on. Is that clear, folks? Always have some nightstand light or something on, so entire LED is not going into the eye. Does that make sense, folks? So that's very important, okay? So the light and melatonin, you have to be careful. The two-stage, we talked about it. Now, talking about medication, like I'm very against to take sleeping medications. The reason behind, you could take for a few days to train the cycle. People can take 1 to, like I tell them, maximum they take for a week to train your sleep cycle. Because why? Sleep medicines decreases the REM sleep. What's the point of you take a medicine to fall asleep, but then you are still not getting enough REM sleep? That means nothing is useful there. Is that clear, folks? You might as well stay up. Right? That's why when people take sleep pill, they still sleep 10 hours and wake up, but they are not fresh when they wake up. Oh, I've taken all the sleeping pill, folks. I've tried all of them. I love trialing things out. I took one day before, when I was a single, Friday night, I took one of these pills. I woke up on Sunday afternoon. We tried it. It's crazy. I had to have my roommate check my pulse once in a while. It's a crazy thing. We shouldn't do that because you have 2 days. They said I woke up twice to go to the bathroom. I have no memory of that. So I told, I take this week, my roommate, you take next week, because one person has to be up. We don't want to take both. 2 days, I slept, I woke up, I was so fresh, but I didn't feel happy. I felt like something is groggy, right? Why? Because your REM sleep is still not there, folks, even if you sleep, okay? Now, that's why the REM sleep is the key. Now, same thing with alcohol. Some people say, when I drink little alcohol, I fall asleep. That's not really true, because alcohol reduces REM sleep. Is that clear, folks? That's important, okay? So that's that. Now, the only time you could use benzodiazepine, if we want to reduce somebody's N3 and REM sleep. In which situation I want to reduce N3? When people have nightmare or sleepwalking. Is that clear, folks? So by decreasing N3, I'm reducing the time of deeper sleep, but then they don't walk in the night. But then guess what? Then they are still getting a little bit of mess up with REM sleep, isn't it, folks? So that's the idea. So that's sleep physiology, folks. It's important to understand the sleep physiology. Is everybody clear? All right. Melatonin, it puts you to sleep. That means if you take it and you go to sleep. Now, still, after you take the melatonin, you go to sleep, and let's say you keep your phone on in a sound mode. If somebody calls you, you will wake up, right? Melatonin puts you to sleep, not maintain. So if you take melatonin, put the phone on do not disturb mode and go to sleep, you will sleep like a baby for 8 hours. And you can't depend on the lifelong, because you get tolerance very fast to melatonin. Okay, so these things to regulate the sleep cycle, folks, okay? That's very important, because, when you want to regulate, that means, you see, why do you think ER physicians get paid so much money? It's because their lifestyle is so messed up. Because 1 week they do day shift and the 1 week is a night shift. They never get the same day shift. You know how hard it is to quickly switch 1 week from day shift to the next week to the night shift? Oh no, horrible. It's not easy, folks. I did 2 weeks night shift continuously, 14 days, once in my life. I felt like I want to kill somebody and kill myself after that. It's because you wake up in dark and you work in dark and you don't know what's happening in the world, right? Like, it's like you go to the hospital, come back, and if it is winter, it's even worse. 14 days, I felt like it's something different. No, that's what it is for. That's why nighttime shift, you get paid more when you are working in the ER, because nobody wants to do that. So always remember that sleep is the key, folks. All right, next, hypothalamus and thalamus. Let's talk about hypothalamus. Now, we already know hypothalamus control pituitary glands. We talked about oxytocin and vasopressin, but there's a little bit more to it. You don't have to memorize all these nucleus by heart, but you should know the names, okay? There is a lateral nucleus responsible for hunger. So every time you stimulate the lateral nucleus, we feel hungry. Does that make sense, folks? So you could see who stimulates that. Ghrelin, because we know ghrelin makes you hungry, isn't it, folks? Who inhibits that? Leptin. Look at that. So I could tell leptin inhibits lateral, ghrelin stimulates the lateral. So the more leptin you have, the less hungry you feel. Is that clear, folks? All right. Now, sometime when the lateral nucleus is destroyed, you become anorexic. because you lost the whole hunger. You don't want to eat. If it happens in adults, we call anorexic. If it happens in pediatric, we call failure to thrive. What does failure to thrive mean? It's in babies. Basically, they don't eat, so they can't survive. Is that clear, folks? All right. So that's lateral nucleus. Opposite to lateral is ventromedial nucleus. When you see ventromedial nucleus, it makes you feel satiety. It makes you feel full. So actually, I could say leptin stimulates ventromedial and inhibits lateral nucleus. Is that clear, folks? Because leptin stimulates this one. When leptin stimulates ventromedial, I feel full. So I'm not hungry. And they're also inhibiting the guy who's causing hunger. Is that clear, folks? All right. On the other hand, when you destroy ventromedial, you become hyperphagia. You keep eating a lot because there's nothing to control, folks. Okay, that's that. Then you have anterior nucleus and posterior nucleus. I call anterior nucleus as air conditions, right? So it cools your body, which means in summertime, we should have a good anterior nucleus so it can cool our body. It's cooling mechanism. Is that clear, folks? You heard the words heat stroke. What is heat stroke? When the temperature goes more than 104, right? What is happening in 104? The reason when the body temperature goes more than 104, that tells you your anterior nucleus is not able to keep up the cooling. They are not able to control it. That's why the body temperature raises, okay? That's that. So we call it hyperthermia, increased body temperature. Opposite to that, posterior nucleus, it's important for heating. So that means in wintertime, we need posterior nucleus because that maintain our body heat. So we could be okay in the cold temperature. When this posterior nucleus don't respond, we become hypothermia. You know, sometimes you read news, this person died of hypothermia, isn't it, folks? That means the body couldn't keep up with it. You know, a couple of years ago, I read this article. It happened in Canada. A 4-year-old or 3-year-old kid was staying overnight with a grandma in an apartment, and that kid has a sleepwalking problem. So grandma forgot to put the lock, and it was winter, -20 or something outside. And this 3 or 4-year-old kid got up and started walking outside the apartment without shirt, okay, in that minus temperature. Now you see most of the apartments, you open from inside, but you cannot open from outside. So he walked outside, the door automatically locks. And he showed enough to ring the bell or do anything. And they found the next day morning that baby was dead in front of the door. So that was hypothermia, because when he went outside in that extreme temperature, your posterior nucleus cannot keep up with the body producing heat. Does that make sense, folks? You know, that's sad, but that's something that you want to think about, the posterior nucleus. Now, next, suprachiasmatic nucleus for circadian rhythm. Then we have your ADH and oxytocin, we already know. Then we have a preoptic nucleus, which is for thermoregulation, sexual behavior, release of GnRH, all those things, folks. Are we clear? So that's your hypothalamus, folks, okay? It controls. Now, above hypothalamus, there's something called thalamus. That's a secretary, right? Our CEO secretary, we need to know what they do. Now, what did I tell about thalamus? They receive and they give it to the CEO, isn't it, folks? Now look at that. Input, receiving, the destination has to be brain. Because the job of thalamus is to get everything from outside and give it to the CEO. Is that clear, folks? All right. Now let's take a look. They receive the spinothalamic and dorsal column and everything at the ventral posterior lateral nucleus. You do not have to memorize that name. At least you should know thalamus receives that. I won't memorize this. Why? I already know what is spinothalamic. It's pain and temperature, isn't it, folks? If you know, you don't have to memorize that. And it gives to postcentral gyrus. That's your primary somatosensory cortex. Agree, folks? That's not new. Okay. Then you have, so that's for your spinothalamic and dorsal column. The only thing we are missing here, spinocerebellar. Is that clear, folks? Why spinocerebellar is not included here? It goes to cerebellum, not cerebrum. It goes to cerebellum, not cerebrum. So that's why they don't come here. Next, ventral posterior medial nucleus. That's trigeminal and gastroenteropathy. What does that mean? Trigeminal means your face. Think about it, guys. If somebody is receiving pain and temperature, who receives the pain and temperature of the face? That's your trigeminal cranial nerve. Is that clear, folks? Right? Every slap we get from our parents is carried by trigeminal, basically. More sensitive. Right? Trigeminal, folks. And taste from your tongue, right? That's that. It also goes to primary somatosensory. In this chapter, under thalamus, if you have to memorize, it has to be these two. Lateral geniculate ganglion is responsible for vision. So they receive the optic nerve and send it to occipital cord because occipital is the responsible for vision. Is that clear, folks? All right. Lateral. Medial is for hearing. So M for music. Easy to remember. Medial for hearing. Which one is the hearing lobe? Temporal lobe. You could see that. Okay. That's the temporal lobe. So these two you should know, lateral and medial, folks. Lateral, L for light. You could think in that way too. Okay. All right. It's right there. Now next, ventral anterior and ventral lateral nuclei. Just to remember, it connects the basal ganglia to motor cortex. You know, what is the function of basal ganglia? That's a communication between the CEO and the advisor, isn't it, folks? So even though you have advisor, still you have to go through the secretary. Is everybody clear, folks? So that's that. Now again, these are the two. That is ideal, folks. That's your hypothalamus and thalamus to kind of understand what is happening here. Now, this part, limbic system. Now, when we talk about limbic system is the collection of structure. Okay, it's collection of structure, few structure. For example, what are those structures? Highlight: hippocampus, amygdala, mammillary bodies. And I mean, all of them, but hippocampus and mammillary bodies are the most important of those. These are almost 5-6 structures together. We call it a limbic system. Now, what is limbic system, folks? Limbic system makes your personality as who you are. Right? Who you are. What does that mean? It determines the emotion, right? Everybody has different emotions, isn't it, folks? So that's your limbic system that makes your emotions. Some people are very soft, some people are metal hard. Those things are limbic system. Then on the other hand, long-term memory. Some people say that, oh, some, you know, in school they do that, right? Some kid has a better memory and the other kid has not good memory. What does that mean? It's the limbic system, folks. Your limbic system, how you train. You know, they say when somebody is born, everyone's brain capacity is exactly the same at birth. And how you train and how you feed them is what makes it different. Is everybody clear, folks? That's exactly what it is, folks. How you train them from the small age, and also it's about training, right? Like if you send the kid to the toothpaste, if you send the kid to a command since 2 years old, they become really good at maths. Those kids are crazy math, right? But then it's because you know what? They are trained. That doesn't mean the kid is smart. It's basically the kid is trained well for the math, right? It's the same thing. So, and also what we feed them, think about folks. Your food gives energy to become hormones. So whatever the food you eat, that becomes hormones. That hormones is what makes you feel who you are. Does that make sense? That's the idea. Okay. And olfaction, behavior modulation, autonomic nervous system, it's all your limbic system. Limbic system is very, very important. When there is an alternation in the limbic system, that's where everything goes down, depression, this and that and stuff, right? So that's the idea. Now that's why they say no matter how our day is, not everybody can be happy every single day. Because there's always one day you are something a little down, something a little up. Why? Because it's the limbic system is never perfect every single day. It's a fluctuation. Is that clear, folks? So that's the idea. Okay. So that's limbic system. Now, the next thing we're going to do is basically I want to go to the ventricular system because that's we need it to be done here. Take a break and come back.